Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
We inherited our grandma's house by the brothers Redhill. Okay, so I don't know much about this kind of thing. I probably wouldn't either if our friend Serena didn't push me to it. I don't have a whole lot of experience with writing or computers, so pardon the spelling errors and whatever else. This is going to be a journal, I guess. You see, my brother and I inherited our grandma's house up in Avon, Maine. She was put in a nursing home a while ago, but our Uncle Bob always lived there with her, and still did until he died. We weren't always close in the sense that we would visit all the time. Hell, we haven't even been living in the state most of our adult life. Every summer as kids, though, we would go up there for a weekend or so. It was always this magical place full of history. What I do know is that it was originally our great-great-grandparents' house. It had been passed down for a while. I also heard it was built in 1820. Other than that, it's anybody's guess. I suppose I should have started with an introduction. My name is Matt Redhill. My younger, much larger brother is Zach Redhill. Now, when I say this place is magical, sure, there's lots of happy memories. But there are also some that are not so happy. Everyone in my family has their own ghost story about the place. The biggest, I would say, is the time my Uncle Bob got a Ouija board. Our other cousins and us would gather around the kitchen table and have hours of fun talking to the dead. Most of it was nonsense, until we started talking to Chris Gamblin. The story goes, as the board puts it, she originally lived here with her father. He was a tree cutter, and she was involved in some sort of accident involving logs falling on her. Back then, deaths and burials didn't have the same customs as today, so she was supposed to have been buried in the basement next to an old pump well. Naturally, this prompted us to go down there with shovels and start digging. Zach and I were both pretty young at the time. I barely remember it, and I'm sure he doesn't know anything about it. Eventually, one of the older cousins did find a rusted pump and part of an old wool shirt or something. It was then Uncle Bob realized we had snuck down there. He made us all get the hell out of there before he switched our asses, as he put it, and began pouring concrete over the section of dirt within the hour. He never told us why. Well, we arrived a couple days ago, and it's just as magical as I remember. Even more so. There's a thing in the basement that won't shut up. Its growling and banging around is becoming unsettling. Uncle Bob doesn't have much to say on the matter. Yes, he's still dead, and you think that would stop him from showing up. But it appears he doesn't even know he's dead. There's also a weird radio broadcast coming from somewhere on the mountain. It talks about all kinds of weird things. It's 8 a.m. If you see an old man asking for change, do not give it to him. If your dog runs off into the woods, do not follow him. If the walls begin to melt, stop drinking the city water and wait in a small area for it to pass. We would also like to welcome the 2 sons of Philip back home. There doesn't appear to be any call sign or anything, and it randomly comes on, no matter what station it's on. Not always at the same time either. Maybe we just never noticed how strange things were up here. Might have been too young. But Zach and I don't have much else going for us anymore. I'll explain how we got up here. We've always been pretty close after our parents died sometime after high school. I suppose it gave us the freedom to go out into the world and seek our fortunes. We started out with a little landscaping company in Vermont. Nothing too fancy, just cutting the grass, trimming the hedges, whatever else. Well, my brother had begun to develop his share of personal problems, namely gambling and hookers. I think I've managed to get it in check a bit. But it was too little, too late. You see, the one job we had was building the client's garden in her backyard. Zach, God bless him, is about as dumb as a pile of rocks. He was talking to the lady while I was doing some digging, and he misread way too many signs. I think the final one might have been something about plowing her backyard. Well, anyway, he took this as a sign and began to kiss her. She wasn't feeling it, and naturally the both of us ended up getting sued. Now, I know what you might be thinking, and no, he's not a sexual predator. He is a damn pervert, though, and we had something of a sensitivity training. He still loves his hookers, but now he knows to make everything very clear. I even encouraged him to get it in writing just to be safe. Well, we decided to pick up and move on out of there. Found a nice place in Massachusetts, got us a moving truck, and started delivering furniture for people. I'm not all that big of a guy myself. I rely more on my smarts, but Zach, that damn bull of a man, could lift the engine out of a tank. We each got our gifts, so at least he's good for something. This went really well. We were raking in all kinds of money, even during the pandemic, and it seemed that there was no stopping us. Well, wouldn't you know it, I made the mistake of bringing that bull into a china shop. It was a church, actually. We were tasked with bringing in a bunch of new pews and some bookshelves and all that. While we were headed up to the stage with a shelf, Zach backed into the altar they'd gotten arranged up there on stage. Of course, they had candles and whatever else was burning, and he tried to set everything right and whatnot. It's then I noticed he's got a candle in the hood of his sweater. The flame lit easily, and I ran over to try to pat it out, but it's not working. So he rips it off himself and throws it off into the distance. It was a bit too distant and ended up draping across the big wooden Jesus they got hanging on the wall from the cross. I don't know how much varnish they put on that, but damn if it didn't light up like a bat straight out of hell. I pulled out my phone to call the fire department. The preacher comes running up screaming, Mary Mother this and Joseph that and a few other guys all coming and trying to beat it with towels. I could have told them that was a terrible idea right then and there, but they wouldn't listen anyhow. The towels they used all caught fire, and they throw them off into the distance as well. And like deja vu, the other furniture starts lighting up, and by now the flames are reaching the walls and ceilings. We get ourselves out of there, and when all is said and done, the church is nothing but ruins. Oh, they called us all sorts of names, like Satanists, heretics. I mean, we ain't too religious, but it still hurt. Then we were getting letters in the mail of all kinds telling us that we need to leave town and even the state in some cases. We weren't getting any business anymore and of course had to pay the church back basically everything we had. It wasn't looking too good. It was about a week after we got the letter. It was addressed to us from the estate of Robert Redhill. We looked at each other in confusion. Robert Redhill was our Uncle Bob. What do you think it is? Zach asked. How am I supposed to know? I didn't send it. Open it up. He fumbled with his big fingers, and after a moment or so, he finally ripped out one side and pulled the handwritten letter out. There came a clang to the floor as a big iron key slid out. It was old, and we recognized it. It was the key to our grandmother's front door. Zach unfolded the letter and started to read. To Matthew and Zachary Redhill, it is with our deepest condolences that we inform you of your Uncle Robert's passing. Sometime about 2:30 a.m. on March the 12th, he slipped away peacefully into the night. Our office was instructed to inform you that the both of you shall immediately inherit the estate, as well as any lands, taxes, titles, and or debts that were previously owned by your Uncle Robert. Should you like to attend, the funeral will be on March 24th at the Mount Vernon Memorial Home at 1 p.m. Following this, his body will be interned with his father in the Miles Square Cemetery at 3 p.m. Please make arrangements and let us know your decisions. Thank you, and you have our deepest sympathies. Samuel Target. Uncle Bob is dead? I can't believe it, I said, looking off into the distance. He was always one of our favorite family members. Made us laugh all the times as kids, doing silly crap all the time. Damn, it's been a long time since we've been up that way. Well, we have crap all going on down here. I don't think that Christian group is going to let us live here much longer anyway. What do you say to another trip? Hell yeah, dude. We were both in our 30s now. Yet it amazed me how he'd get excited and jump up in the air like that. Dreadlocks flopping all over the place. I mean, I think dreadlocks look ridiculous. But it certainly doesn't stop the whore parade from coming through the house at all hours of the night. Well, I guess it's decided then. We're going to Grandma's. We smacked hands and cheered with a couple of beers, of course. That couple of beers turned into a lot more. I had no idea what time it was when I woke up. It took me a few minutes to actually learn what woke me up. It sounded like the TV downstairs was still on and people were cheering for a game. Then the banging started. I shot up and ran into Zach's room. He was still out like a light, of course, and I shook him out of his drool-filled slumber. It took a few smacks to the back of the head before he was actually up. Dude, I don't know what's going on down there, but it ain't good. We gotta go. Luckily, we thought to pack before our blackout, so we grabbed our bags, and as we were making our way out to the basement, the window in the kitchen shattered, and flames spread out all over the place. They were throwing Molotov cocktails. We got to the garage and threw our bags in the back of the truck. The trailer was hitched, thank God, and we didn't even bother opening the garage door. Just drove straight through it, smashing a few headlights and almost a group of protesters. They all had signs saying stuff like, "Repent or perish," "Obey and seek mercy," and our favorite, "Jesus saves, not you." Even as I was peeling out of there, trying to avoid the group of people running back and forth, we both laughed. "Did they have a third grader write this?" I said, spinning the steering wheel to the left. The truck and trailer bounced like we were driving over a bunch of rocks, and luckily everything remained intact. "Hasta la vista," Zach yelled out the window. Pieces of garage doors still falling off the hood and windshield. We drove on for a few more hours, and eventually we were out of the state. We grabbed some breakfast burritos and once again made our long drive to Grandma's. It was long and boring. The times we did talk was mostly nonsense. Somehow we got on the subject of the song Kung Fu Fighting, and we were discussing the film it was based on, and who was there doing the actual fighting. "I heard they were doing a sequel," Zach said after a bit. "What? You can't do a sequel to a song." "Sure you can. Metallica has a trilogy of The Unforgiven." "How are you going to do a sequel of Kung Fu Fighting? I mean, what? Was everybody Kung Fu gently nursing their wounds? You'll see, man. It's gonna be like Cobra Kai on crack." Grandma's house couldn't come fast enough. We crossed into Maine, and while later we were headed through the town of Strong, we were just one town away from the hill that leads up to the house, and Zach had been asleep for the last hour or so. The silence was nice, and I breathed in the fresh air, feeling completely rejuvenated from the long trip. I swear, Zach, between the church and Mrs. Mason, that's 2 strikes. We really can't afford another one right now, I said to myself, as I went to hit the radio on. "No worries, bro. I learned my lesson," he yelled, while smacking the back of my head. This scared the shit out of me, and I had to crank the wheel back onto the road. Our stuff in the trailer shifted, and the whole thing tipped over, bending the neck and completely snapping the pin. Our boxes of stuff were thrown all over hell, and I was forced to slam the brakes to a stop. Silence once again filled the air. My hands white-knuckled around the steering wheel. My face was locked in a mask of rage, and I slowly turned to him. "So, is this considered a strike, or are we calling it a ball?" he simply replied. The smile plastered on his face told me that he didn't know how close we were to flying off the side of the road and into the small brook that ran along it. I opened the door and was about to step out when I first noticed the odor, and then I saw the flames and smoke rising from the ground. I thought the truck was on fire at first. I mean, the tires were trying to catch, but the ground itself was softly burning. It was as if someone poured gasoline along the road, maybe in the space of 30 feet, and the tar itself was kind of slippery. I looked behind me and saw how the tire marks skid across the ground like dark snow. "I guess we can call it a ball for now, Zach." "Dude, is this freaking road on fire?" "How cool is that?" he said, getting out and running to the side. He came back with a decent-sized stick and with some effort proceeded to write "Zach rules" in the dying flames of the road. I got out and saw the flames began to die out. Thankfully, the tires themselves were okay. They looked like they began to melt a little, but not really worse for wear. They would get us up the hill and to the house anyway. We began picking up our strewn about busted stuff. Most of it fit in the bed of the truck, and the rest we managed to cram into the cab with us. The trailer, however, was totally effed. There was no way we could take it with us at the moment, so we left it behind. By this high-pitched screeching coming from the other side of the road, we squinted, and out of the woods came running an old man. I mean, this was strange enough. But to stack on top of it, he was completely naked, save for a soiled pair of tighty-whities, complete with shiny red pair of high heels. "What in the name of methamphetamine is going on here?" I asked Zach. I was completely taken aback and almost fell over when he was close enough I could smell the wretched stench blasting off of him. "Ha ha! You guys are the keys we've been waiting for, all right? Welcome to the party, boys." I was trying not to gag, and Zach started laughing. "Looks like you got yourself a friend, Matt." I shot him a look and started pulling out some change when the strange man shot out his own. He grabbed my wrist and yanked it forward, and before I knew what was happening, he bit down on my palm. "Freaking hell!" I yelled, giving him a hard kick. He laughed even harder, jumping back like an acrobat. My blood still pouring down his lips as he reached behind and began digging. I didn't stick around to see for what and sped out of there before a dark mass winged by, barely missing my truck. "Dude, did he just bite you?" Zach asked. There was way too much enthusiasm in his demeanor. "Yep, he sure as shit did. We need to get it cleaned, like now." "Yeah, we better. That's how they make more of them. Can you feel the change yet?" "Shut up." After a moment later, the hill came into view, and in traditional fashion, we of course took the steep part that led up to the crossroad. A bit longer, and Grandma's came into view. It was weird to see Bob's car, but know that he wouldn't be inside to meet us. The house was dark, empty, and forgotten. It made me sad. The view all around us was as spectacular as ever, though. Behind the house, you could see the large mountain and all the other tree-covered mountains for miles around. This place was truly magic. "Oh, finally," said Zach. He opened the passenger door, letting himself and a lot of our clothes spill out. Despite Uncle Bob always working on the place, it didn't look any different than I remembered it. The house is a basic square structure with 2 floors, a wood shed attached to the left, where the wood he'd cut all year long for the stove sat, along with his workstation and pool table. Inside were also 2 thick rusted doors that led to the basement. I always felt creeped out by these, thinking it would be a way for Chris Gamblin to get me and to pull me down, while that lessened greatly in my age. It wasn't completely gone. There's a door that leads to the back of the house as well, and behind that was another shed next to a vegetable garden. He'd been dead for a couple of weeks, and the weeds began to take it back. To the left of this was a huge fire pit. Every year we'd go up, there would be a giant pile of wood and busted furniture and brush sitting just here for us. Uncle Bob would douse the entire thing in gasoline and give us each firecrackers and Roman candles with which to try and light it with. You'd be surprised how difficult it is to get one going without actual flame, but we'd get it eventually. The pit itself was still there, but hardly any wood. I suppose without kids to entertain, there wasn't much point to it. There were so many reminders of the good times we had with him. He wasn't really what you'd call an amazing conversationalist, but he always knew what to say and when to say it to great effect. He always knew how to give us a hell of a visit, too. Another point of interest is the trailer that I think belonged to my Uncle Frank. He moved around a lot, and while I do have slight memories of him, I would say about half of them are fond. He was a strict man with a sense of humor that would make a cracker look damp. Say the wrong thing, and you could find yourself at the end of a PTSD episode. Well, for whatever reason, the trailer would always sit there, never changing, never doing anything. There's some other areas that were special to us, but I'll get to that later. So after cleaning and bandaging my hand, there we were, sitting at the table that we'd sat at since the beginning of our lives. Pretty much everything about the place was ancient. There were stools, a chair, and most of the dishes that had been there since before our Grandpa Rick married our grandma. The place smelled the same, too. Probably hasn't changed since then either. Not a bad smell, mostly like fresh cut wood. We played some dice for a while and then decided we should get some pizza. I looked through the phone book and took the phone off the wall. The Bull was the place we would usually hit before getting here. Even the pizza was nostalgic. "Hello? I'd like to order a pizza." "Dude, order 2 pizzas," Zach whispered to me. "And wings." "Certainly, sir. What kind?" "Actually, make it 2, and can I add hot wings to that?" "Yeah, what kind?" "I'll take a meat lovers and a chicken bacon ranch." "Dude, order some breadsticks too, and some kind of cake." I pushed my brother's face out of my bubble, and the woman asked for my name and address. "Matt or Zach, up on the crossroads." "Wait, Matt? It's Serena." "Serena, no way. That's awesome. How you been?" "It's Serena. Tell her to bring breadsticks." "Breadsticks," Zach yelled in the background. "Great. I'm so glad you're back. I honestly didn't think I'd ever see you again. Well, we got Bob's place after he died, so we're here for goodish at the moment." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about your uncle. He was a good man." "Breadsticks," Zach yelled again. "Well, give me about 25 minutes and I'll be up there to deliver it. That'll be 4368. Tell Zach I said hi too, and that I got the breadsticks." "All right, we'll see you in a bit," I said, and hung up the phone. "She got your damn breadsticks. Damn it, dude." "Well, I'm hungry. You know how I get after we have a doobie snack, he said as I took my turn rolling. A little bit went by and the sun was beginning to set. A car pulled up and it was Serena. She looked just as I remembered her all those years ago. Her eyes were bright green and her blonde hair went down past her back. Back in the day, we usually hung out here at the house. There wasn't much reason to go out except to get food or go fishing, so we only played with our cousins when they'd come to visit. One day we went to Sandy River to get some trout. I couldn't have been older than 8. Zach was maybe 6. We went off from our dad to find our own special spot. We didn't go really far, but eventually we did come across a sort of cove built into the rock wall that had a large stone jutting out in the middle of the river. We decided it would be our spot and spent all day trying to catch fish. We weren't all that successful and were about to go back when she, with her long blonde hair, stepped out from the other side of the wall with a pull of her own. She stopped when she saw us, unsure of what to say. Hey, I'm Zach. What's your name? Serena. Hi, Serena. I'm Matt. Nice to meet you, I said, putting out my hand. She walked up and shook it. She put hers out to Zach, who ignored it completely, and he wrapped his arms around her. She laughed, and we hit it off ever since then. She walked up the steps, and I opened the door for her, and she came in, setting the food on the table. Pizza! Zach yelled, grabbing her from behind. Some things never change. It's nice to see you too, Zach, she said, laughing. Can you stay a bit? I mean, it's been so many years. I'd love to, but unfortunately, everybody wants breadsticks on a Saturday evening. I'll tell you what, though. I'm going to be off around 10, and I can swing by then if you want. Yeah, that would be great. We never made it to Uncle Bob's funeral, so we were thinking about heading up to visit him where he's buried. You know the cemetery at the end of this road? Zach asked. Sure do. I can't get there without going by it. Oh, well, we're going to have a few drinks with him later. You should totally come. Kind of weird, but you bet. See you guys there, she said, flashing a smile and giving us both a hug. We said our goodbyes and dug into our food. It's not often. I'm glad Zach can't keep his big mouth shut. But this was one of those times. I was hungrier than I thought, and our already dwindling supply was now gone. We stuffed ourselves silly, and were already wondering where we could get some more. Do you think Uncle Bob has any up in his room? Zach asked, raising his eyebrows. I'm not sure. I thought he quit a while back. Dude, he quit like 10 times. I bet even now he's roasting a spiff with Jesus. Yeah, good point. He did grow it for a while, too. Hell, I bet he's got a bunch up there. We both got off the couch and ran up the pine steps. Bob's room was off to the left, his effects still in chaos, yet organized piles lining the walls. For some reason, the back of the room had a door that led to the roof of the woodshed. I never understood why he would build that, but I guess I didn't need to know. His bed still lay neat and made, and I was tempted to start rummaging. There were many times when I was a kid that I tried going through his neat old stuff, but eventually I was caught and punished. I found out why, apart from personal privacy, when I came across some nudie tapes and his collection of greenery. He no longer had the armoire he used to keep it in, though. Another thing for the fire pit, I thought. There were a few tiny roaches on his desk, and if it was all we could find, how old they were, we didn't know, but we said screw it and stuffed them into a bowl in his honor. There weren't maybe 6 hits between the two of us, but the whole time we told each other that our great memories of Uncle Bob. It was almost done, and Zach took one more, probably mostly resin, hit out of it, and began putting it back on the desk when a hand reached out for it. You gonna share that? Oh, sorry, he said, handing it over. We continued our conversation, talking about the times he'd mocked Grandma getting upset about butter bowls. And the bowl was passed to me. I was about to try another hit when both of our heads snapped forward to each other. What the freak? I yelled, dropping the pipe on the ground. We both backed away as fast as we could, knocking stuff over and looking in shock at each other. That actually happened, right? Zach only looked at me and slowly nodded, probably with the same look of shock I mirrored. There was no one there, and I swear to God, we both saw his hand take the bowl and give it back to me. We were about to run downstairs when I noticed the seat to the desk chair was swung open. There was a hidden compartment set on hinges, and I saw a large bag of weed. I grabbed it as fast as I could, and I followed my brother down the steps. Criminy! I knew the place was haunted, Zach yelled as he paced back and forth. Then he noticed what was in my hand. Is that? Yep. He had that hiding spot all along and we never knew. I don't doubt he built the chair himself. Gosh, that guy was a genius. Well, do you think it was him up there? I don't know. I mean, it didn't try to hurt us. All it seemed to want was a hit off the bowl. It kind of sounds like him. Well, he's dead. He doesn't need to go around spooking us like that. Agreed. So what now? He began twisting his dreadlocks between his fingers, something he did often when he was trying to come up with a plan. Well, I guess we should throw some logs in the stove and listen to the radio like he used to do. Maybe he won't be in a bad mood. That's a good idea. There was plenty of wood along the wall of the living room. The fireplace sat upon a fireproof stage, kind of in the left corner where you come in from the door, and to the right was a chair and a couch. The other wall had the radio, TV, and all of the dolls that our grandma would use to knit clothes around. She was always knitting something. More than a few times, we would get winter clothes or stuffed animals for birthdays. We sat and chilled for a while, listening to the classic rock, letting the warmth of the fireplace fight off the still cold weather of May. That was when the station seemed to cut out for a moment. When it came back on, it sounded like someone reading off a report. Good evening, listeners. The time is now 10:32 p.m. The temperature is 42 degrees Fahrenheit with a slight gust of wind going southeast at 13 miles an hour. Reports of a strange creature attacking 10:32? Zach shouted. I checked my phone. It was only 9:32. They must be broadcasting from Wisconsin or something. Probably why it has so much static. Yeah, maybe. Seems a long way to pick up a signal, though. By the time we got back to listening, the broadcast had returned to She's Got Legs by ZZ Top. We both looked at each other with the oddness of it all, but decided it was about time to get ready. We needed to head out to the cemetery and meet Serena there. We grabbed our coats and headed out to the truck. The night was pretty thick with barely a moon to speak of, and I looked up to the stars. They were bright and vibrant as I remembered, and the two of us just stood there for a moment, marveling at the ocean lights. You sure as hell don't get this in the city, Zach said, and I agreed with him. It made me think of how Uncle Bob would get the large telescope out of his room on nights like this and show us the craters of the moon, and even the rings of Saturn. I got into the truck and started it. Zach opened the door to get in. Oh shit, we almost forgot the beer, he said, shutting it and running back in. I looked out to the house and continued letting the nostalgia run over me. I couldn't get over how strange and surreal it all was, that we owned it now. Eventually, Zach got back in with the 12-pack and went on our way. As I backed onto the road, I swear I saw Bob's door on the roof going into his room open, then shut. But at the time, I didn't give it too much thought. The road went on for a while, past a couple of our only neighbors who owned farms. They were good people who would let us come over and feed the horses, and across from them a woman named Charlotte had goats. I wondered if they still lived there. I would have to stop by and find out sometime. Eventually, the road came to a T with the left side leading to both the town of Phillips and the cemetery. You could get there the long way by going past the hill and around, but there wasn't much fun in that. The cemetery was about as creepy as I remembered. Our grandpa was buried there, along with a few other distant relatives. It was also dark, but I always kept a few flashlights in the glove box. It isn't a very large cemetery as they go. Pretty much one road going in and around in a U-shaped pattern going back out. So it wasn't too hard to find the plot of dug-up earth. We parked the truck and got out. "You think we're going to find any ghosts here?" Zach asked. Well, I wasn't, but now I am. Good job. Zach took the 12-pack and began to open one. "Dude, we should wait for Serena to get here first." "Huh? Is that 'cause you like her, huh?" "Want her to be your girlfriend?" he teased. "Don't be a dick. Be a dude. Anyway, what's wrong with that? She's cute. Obviously remembers me." "She obviously remembers me, too, but you don't see me getting an arrow over her." "Shut up. Anyway, the first beer should go to Uncle Bob. The man's been sober for God knows how long, and he deserves it." Zach bopped the cap and lifted it to the sky. "To Uncle Bob, the only person who taught me how to live with a butt chin," Zach said to the sky, and began pouring it into the soft dirt. "He's running people off the road in heaven now," I said, bowing my head. "Screw it. She can catch up when she gets here," Zach said, opening another. "Yeah, fair enough." "I gotta take a leak, though," I said, walking to the back of the cemetery. Even though the air was a bit cold, it was nice, and the promise of spring was in the air, being careful not to walk off the end of the small cliff that leads to a brook. I let nature do what it does best. Listening intently over my stream, I could have sworn I heard some kind of growly whispering. "So hungry," it seemed to say. As soon as I turned around to tell Zach, I was met with him yelling, "Coming at ya," as he proceeded to throw a beer. It sailed just past me and smashed hard against something in the dark. "What the freak?" I yelled, turning back to see where it had landed. There was a man lying on his back. Well, I say man then, 'cause I didn't know any better, but there was clearly something wrong with him. It got up and growled, stumbling towards us. I started screaming and ran back towards the truck. "Dude, there's something out there," I yelled, fumbling with my keys. Zach squinted, and out of the shadows, something shambled towards us. It was small. My fear was immediately lessened when I realized it only stood about maybe 4 feet tall. Zach was more than a few feet taller than this thing, and we began to laugh. "Looks like someone started the party early," he said as it came closer. "Hey man, if you need a ride somewhere to sleep it off, we can take you," I offered. It continued forward, and after a bit we realized it wasn't a person. It had no clothes, and its limbs were gray and extremely thin. Long, sharp claws curled at the end of its fingers and toes, and its teeth were just as sharp. "Oh, freak, what the hell is that?" Zach yelled before draining the rest of his beer. "On my mark," I yelled and reached down to pick up more bottles. The first few missed wildly, but the remainder of the 12-pack made their target. Beer after beer slammed into the thing's chest until the final munition exploded against its head and knocked it back to the edge of the gate. It fell back and began convulsing, struggling to get back up. "Dude, did you see that?" I nodded. "I hit him with that beer and it went straight down. I don't know what that thing is, but it's got to be allergic to alcohol." Zach nodded in disbelief and ran to the truck. grabbing the backup 12-pack, and we began pelting more beers at the beast. About the time headlights came into view and we saw Serena pulling up. Getting out of the car, she saw something was very wrong and came over to us. This break in the assault was all it needed to lurch forward, taking with it a piece of the iron gate that must have snapped off and was now stuck in the creature's ribs. It hunched over on all fours and began charging us, snarling like some sort of demon. She put her hands out and boom, boom! Explosions rocketed the night. She stopped for a moment after hitting it a few times, and as it got up and ran back, she continued to fire at it. "What the freak was that?" she yelled, looking at us in disbelief. "I don't know. It was one of them trolls or critters." "Why do you have a gun?" I asked. "Why else? I deliver all over this place. I don't need to get robbed or raped." "Well, I'm glad you got here. Course we had it handled. A few more beers and that thing would have been finished." "They don't tell you that in the stories," Zach said, chiming in. "Well, look, we need to get out of here. Let's go to Grandma's," I said, getting in the truck. The rest of the night was pretty uneventful. We were out of beer, of course, so we smoked some of my uncle's weed and watched a few movies we saw hundreds of thousands of times when we were kids. Turns out I wouldn't have a chance with Serena. She was a lesbian. It hurt, but she was still a damn good friend, and it was just like old times again. She ended up going home a few hours later. I offered her to stay the night, but she said her girlfriend, Vicky, wouldn't like that very much. Plus, even though she spent a lot of time up here with us, she didn't feel comfortable staying in a haunted house. We found out the people in the town had a nickname for the place, the Redhill house. We said our goodbyes and decided we should figure out sleeping arrangements ourselves. There was no way in hell we were going to sleep in different rooms, and it didn't feel right to take Bob's old room. So we decided to take the room in the back of the living room that led up to another set of stairs. We flipped a coin to see who got the bed. I won, of course, and we crashed pretty easily. Our sleep wasn't long, though, as sometime before dawn we heard something screeching and smashing things around downstairs in the basement. All those past stories came to mind, and we both started getting pretty freaked out. I decided we needed to check it out, just in case there was a wild animal down there. Zach's a big dude, but he's a bit of a coward, so I had to be the one to take the initiative. Just beyond the door next to the bed I was sleeping in is my grandma's old room. We hadn't been in there yet either, as a sign of respect, but the trapdoor to the basement was in there under the stairs. Now was the time. I slowly opened the door and creeped my way down. Bob had never taken her bed out of there, it seems, and it was all how I remembered. The sounds of wood splintering and glass breaking was loud as I slowly unbarred the wooden door leading down. "Hello?" I yelled weakly. Is that you, Chris?" Everything went silent, and staring off into the dark below, time seemed to go on for eternity. I slowly made my way down the old steps and found the light switch. Light flooded the musty basement, and I could see the slab of concrete still covering the ground in the corner. The bulkhead leading out of the woodshed was open, but I didn't see anything. "Okay, dude, I scoped it out. There ain't nothing scary down here. Shelves and shit is smashed to bits, though, so it's your turn. Go find the animal and kill it." He nodded, and I let him around me. I followed him down, and he made his way over to the broken bits of wood, sifting through them, going, "Here, kitty, kitty, kitty." It obviously wasn't a damn cat, but I was really hoping in the corner was a bunch of sheets, probably where he grew his stuff, and as Zach moved the sheet to the side, I saw the gray, sharp-toothed face creep behind him. "Zach, behind you!" I yelled, and he turned just in time to see the creature from the cemetery tried to swipe at him. He moved just in time, and we both ran up the stairs and out into the woodshed. Zach turned and slammed the thick iron doors behind us and tied it up with a chain. It didn't take us long to find an old lock to keep it shut, and we both collected ourselves. "What the hell is wrong with this place?" I panted. "It must have followed us." So quoth this raven. My thanks to Paul Stefani for bringing me this story by the brothers Redhill. It is a fun one, and there is more to come, he has promised. Anyway, very comical. Very Bill and Ted, Dude, Where's My Car, Tucker and Dale. Anyway, I found it very enjoyable, and I hope they didn't mind I changed a word or two. There was a bit too much for YouTube. Okay, for this lady, I hope you all have a lovely, lovely day, darlings. Thank you so kindly for stopping by my chateau, my darlings. It does mean so much to me. Please, if you have not subscribed, as many of you have not, please do so. Give me a like so I know what you would like to hear. And comment. I always love to read your comments. And special thanks to my Patreon and membership supporters. Ciao, darlings.